The Bible is filled with heroes, men of honor, and adherents to the path of righteousness. It's also filled with bullies, jealous a-holes, and genocidal maniacs. And the line between them is sometimes as thin as the pages that describe them. Most of Moses' stories in the Bible feature him ordering mass deaths. Your mind probably goes to the "let my people go" part, but he let a lot of people go from breathing anymore. Several passages feature him murdering his own people for daring to doubt or distrust the absolute faith he demonstrates. One time he butchered an entire tribe because they were too hot to handle. That one happened in Numbers 25, which details an Israelite who slept with a Midianite woman. In retaliation, under God's orders, Moses sends soldiers to butcher every Midianite. Well, almost everyone. He told his soldiers, "Now kill all the boys, and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man." In other words, everyone died except the virgin women, who became trophies of war instead.
The Lord has spoken!
Enlightenment thinker Thomas Paine might have summed it up best in The Age of Reason, writing, "Among the detestable villains that in any period of the world have disgraced the name of man, it is impossible to find a greater than Moses." It's worth noting that Thomas Paine hated everything, especially religion. But still, Moses did a lot of killy on the way to the promised land. You know Samson and his hair transformation that sapped his strength, but what about the one where he beats 1,000 people to death with a donkey's jawbone? This story of unrestrained death and mayhem begins, as it often does, with a wedding. In Judges 14, Samson is getting married to a Philistine woman. For no apparent reason, Samson gives his 30 groomsmen a riddle they couldn't possibly know the answer to. It's not even a riddle, it's just a random description of stuff in the desert. But the prize is 30 sets of fine clothing, enough to bankrupt the groomsmen, so they get Samson's wife to beg him for the answer, which she relays back to them. Well, Samson's not one to shirk a bet, so he pays them by murdering 30 strangers and stealing their clothes. Things only escalate from there. Crops get burned, wives get burned, and it all culminates in Samson picking up that jawbone and killing everyone. It's ultimately the story of a bully with superpowers, and how riddles are terrible. Noah comes across as a pretty decent guy because of the whole ark thing. However, the story takes a bizarrely dark turn towards the end. After the floodwaters recede, Genesis 9 explains that Noah became a grape farmer and took a liking to wine. One day, Noah got a little faded and passed out in his tent naked. His son Ham spotted his naked father by mistake. He went and told his brothers, who politely walked up to Noah backwards and covered his body with a blanket. It sounds like everyone was being really helpful, but when Noah woke up, for some reason he went into a rage and cursed Ham's son, Canaan, to a life of servitude. Why? Scholars have put forward a lot of theories, and some think that there are a few phrases that do some serious heavy lifting. In the King James Version, the passage is worded such that Ham, quote, saw the nakedness of his father. That specific phrasing is curious because later in Leviticus we get this alarming little passage. "And the man that lieth with his father's wife hath uncovered his father's nakedness." In other words, it's theorized that while Noah was passed out drunk, Ham slept with Noah's wife, or even Noah himself, according to some explanations. Whatever the interpretation, Canaan was probably like, "What did I do?" Jacob was a trickster, no doubt about it. In Genesis 25, he was making a pot of stew when his twin brother Esau came home starving. Normally, you'd just give your brother some soup. Instead, Jacob convinced Esau to trade his entire birthright for the meal. Later, when their father Isaac became old and blind, Jacob deceived his father to take advantage of this unfair trade. Jacob dressed up like his brother to trick Isaac into giving him the blessing meant for Esau. Set aside the fact that he didn't need to dress up to fool a blind man. When Isaac realized he blessed the wrong son, he acknowledged the trick and decided he could do nothing about it. Needless to say, Esau was pretty ticked off.
"Jacob, let me see you here again, and I'll show you what it is to have to fight like a man."
Jacob stole everything from Esau, but it didn't end there. He later had a few wives and a bunch of kids, but he loved one more than the others. His favoritism was so clear that his children sold his preferred kid, Joseph, into slavery to spite him. Historians debate whether Jacob existed, and there's reason to hope that he never did. Just as a refresher, Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel. Cain became a farmer, while his younger brother Abel tended to a flock of sheep. They both made an offering to God, but God liked Abel's offering more than Cain's.
Somebody's upset because God looked on my sacrifice with favor. God looked upon my sacrifice with favor. I mean, is he a total suck or what?
Well, Cain got jealous and killed his brother, and afterwards God ordered Cain to wander the earth as an outcast. That's fitting for a Bible tale. But then God did something unexpected. He gave Cain a mark so that nobody would kill him. If anyone did kill him, they'd suffer sevenfold. So here you have what amounts to an unkillable petty murderer with nothing left to lose. Probably someone you'd want to steer clear of. Elijah was a prophet who performed several notable miracles, and in 1 Kings he challenged the prophets of Baal, a rival god, to a contest. Each would choose a bull, build an altar, and wait for their respective deity to burn the sacrifice. After laughing at his rivals, Elijah had a ton of water dumped on his bull and called out for fire. The Lord brought down a blaze so great that it ignited the bull and the water. The witnesses were so impressed by this feat that they immediately turned to worship God. The former prophets of Baal, on the other hand, never got a second chance.
Seize the prophets of Baal.
Elijah immediately had them slaughtered by all of his new converts. So technically the moral here is don't cross Elijah. Elijah's protege was a man named Elisha. After Elijah, the original, rode a chariot off to heaven, Elisha continued his work, performing a variety of miracles during his life. Most of them would mark him as a heroic and positive feature. But there was also the one time where he summoned holy bearers to butcher a bunch of children for making fun of him. Wait, what? With very little context, 2 Kings chapter 2 depicts Elijah encountering a group of local boys. They make fun of Elisha for being bald, prompting him to call down the Lord's curse on them. Suddenly, 2 bears emerge from the nearby forest and immediately kill 42 children. End of story. Some people just can't take a joke. David, killing a giant. Good. Killing a guy because you're lusting after his wife. Bad. In 2 Samuel 11, David spots a woman bathing, has her brought to him, sleeps with her, and gets her pregnant. That woman, Bathsheba, was the wife of one of David's soldiers, a guy named Uriah the Hittite. Hoping to hide his adultery, David immediately begins scheming.
There is no shame too great. No act so vile that I would not commit it.
First, he brings her husband home from war, hoping he'll sleep with his wife and raise David's eventual child as his own. That doesn't work out, so David sends Uriah to the front line and orders his commander to pull out of the fighting, leaving Uriah to die. Second time's a charm, and this plan goes swimmingly. With Uriah out of the way, David swoops in and marries Bathsheba. But all does not end well for them. Their baby eventually dies, and the split family goes to war and pretty much ruins Israel. Biblical literalism paints Joshua as an all-powerful warrior with the Lord at his beck and call. You know the song. He fought the Battle of Jericho and the walls came tumbling down. When Joshua led an army against 5 kings at the Canaanite city of Gibeon, God stopped the sun in the sky for a full day and hurled hail from above, killing more enemy soldiers than Joshua's army. Joshua 10:14 specifies that this is the first and only time God has performed this feat. Following that, Joshua 10:28-42 basically reads like bullet points describing Joshua and his army as a wave of death sweeping across the land, killing, well, everyone. They attack a city, put the inhabitants to sword, and leave no survivors. Rinse and repeat. Joshua was a hero to his people, but God help you if you saw his army marching over the horizon against you. Kings are rarely the heroes of the Bible. Abimelech was once a broad term used to describe Philistine kings, but it also refers specifically to the son of Gideon. He became the king of Shechem. For starters, Abimelech made his way up the line of succession to the throne by killing all but one of his 70 half-brothers. Not content with the mass murder of his close relatives, he went on to become a violent despot who abused his power until the day he died. At least it remained on brand. According to Judges 9, Abimelech's rule faced constant challenges from his unhappy subjects. After weathering one coup attempt, he wiped out the people of Shechem and salted their fields to guarantee their starvation. He also killed at least 1,000 civilians in a massive fire because sometimes starvation just isn't enough. Abimelech then attacked the city of Thebez, but the residents walled themselves off in a tower. While Abimelech planned his assault, a woman threw a millstone down into his skull. Millstones can weigh 100 pounds easily, so you can imagine how that went. Terrified at the hit his reputation would take if he died at a woman's hands, a very strong woman at that, he asked his armor bearer to stab him, and so he died as he had lived. Like a jerk.